Now, Hamas has agreed to a Gaza ceasefire proposal put forward by Egypt and Qatar, but Israel has indicated a deal is still a long way off. Gazans celebrated the news of Hamas's acceptance outside Al-Aqsa Hospital in the besieged enclave. But the celebrations were premature, with Israel's cabinet unanimously voting to continue the country's offensive in the southern city of Rafah. Israel says the current proposal, which would begin with a 6-week ceasefire and the release of 33 Israeli hostages, is far from reaching its core demands. But it'll continue to engage with negotiations. Let's get more on this now. We're joined by our Global Affairs editor, John Lyons. John, thank you for joining us. What is the latest on this proposal?
Well, Gemma, the latest is that Egypt and Qatar have been, for weeks, months, brokering, trying to get a ceasefire deal. They've come up with this document based on what they believed Israel and Hamas would accept. Hamas has now agreed to that ceasefire and agreed to it to happen immediately. Israel is now saying no. The US, the head of the CIA, William Burns, is now involved. He is now looking at that latest proposal, and he's shuttling around the Middle East. He's been in Cairo. He'll probably head to Tel Aviv. It's interesting, inside Israel there's now a growing sense that it's Benjamin Netanyahu's war, that he, for various reasons, he wants to keep it going for his own political survival, and also because he believes that the job hasn't yet been done in terms of destroying some Hamas. For example, Haaretz, the influential newspaper there, says that Netanyahu hoped that Hamas would reject this latest ceasefire offer, and when it didn't, the paper says he turned to sabotage. Now, another thing and they say that Netanyahu is fleeing from a hostage deal. The closer it gets, the faster he runs to avoid it. He would argue, of course, that no, he does want an end to this, but there's no point finishing when Hamas is still active, as they showed yesterday when they fired a rocket and killed 3 Israeli soldiers. But the other thing that fits a bit with that sabotage theory is that yesterday Israel closed down the office of Al Jazeera in Israel, raided their office, took their equipment, which of course was going to outrage Qatar, who funds Al Jazeera. The odd thing about that is that this war's been going 212 days. Al Jazeera's coverage has not changed a single skerrick in that time. And yet suddenly, on the brink of a ceasefire deal, their office, they're closed down and they're kicked out of the country.
And I mean, as you say, on the brink of a ceasefire deal, and yet we're seeing these so-called targeted strikes in Rafah from Israel, and also a doubling down on plans to invade there. How does that fit with negotiations?
Correct. Israel's been attacking, bombing Rafah in the last few days, and again, within hours of Hamas saying we'll accept the ceasefire, Israel bombed Rafah. So I think my question to the Israeli Prime Minister would be that he has boasted in the past of sabotaging, to use his word, the two-state solution, the Oslo peace process. Is he now attempting to sabotage this peace deal, this ceasefire deal? Because the moment it's over, he's in serious political trouble. That's when all the questions will be asked about why on October 7, that was the worst killing of Israelis in the history of the state under his watch. So former Prime Ministers like Ehud Barak, who I interviewed for Four Corners recently, he said to me that Netanyahu should have quit on October 8. When such atrocities happen on your watch, when you didn't protect your own people, then you should vacate and hand over. But this war has sort of muddied the waters a bit politically for him. He's desperate. He's the Houdini of politics. This is his 3rd time. He's come back as Prime Minister, and he's trying to hold on for his own survival. But within his own cabinet now, the war cabinet, people like Benny Gantz are becoming quite uncomfortable with what are we actually achieving in this war. They will never completely destroy Hamas. Hamas is an idea, it's an ideology. As Yehuda Shaul, the former Israeli military commander, also told us in that Four Corners story, you could destroy Hamas by destroying Gaza. Israel's largely done that. But then it will flourish in the West Bank, in other places around the Middle East, because it's an ideology, it's an idea.
For those people hanging on in Gaza, it's been such mixed messages. It's really sad to watch now the celebrations in the street when it was thought that a proposal has been agreed to, and now just the confusion as to what exactly is happening on that front. That's
right. The people, it's a catastrophic humanitarian situation. And as you say, those people who now, 212 days of war, thousands of bombs dropped. You can imagine the horror, just as the horror of October 7 for those 1,200 Israelis who were killed and the 240 taken hostage. The horror after 7 months now of daily bombing. And it's a tiny place, Gaza. You would hear and smell every bomb, the explosives, half the size of Canberra. We're not talking about a big area.
And what is the reality for these people right now?
Well, Cindy McCain, the head of the World Food Programme, the widow of the great former US Senator John McCain, she said yesterday, and she's been involved with all the World Food Programme people in Gaza, she says that it's no longer, the media talks about we're on the brink of famine in Gaza. She completely disabuses that notion and says there is now a full-blown famine in Gaza, in the north of Gaza, and her concern is that it's spreading to the centre and south. Children are dying. We've seen that 10-year-old boy recently. We saw the pictures of him before and then as he died. Children are dying. People are dying, and there's nothing getting in there. And so the longer this goes on, the more people will die of famine, let alone everything else.
And John, we're yet to see if this deal can be agreed to, but if a deal can't stop a ground invasion of Rafah, what can?
It's possible the United States could stop it tomorrow if they wanted to, because their bombs are being used. The US, and in fact in the past, President Reagan once said to an Israeli Prime Minister, "You're killing too many civilians in southern Israel." And within 4 hours, Israel stopped bombing southern Israel. But President Biden is facing election. I don't think he'll do that. He keeps saying it's indiscriminate bombing and too many civilians are being killed, but he doesn't add the last bit of the sentence, with our bombs. So to answer your question, the US is the only country that could stop it, and I don't think they will.